Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining our first Girls on Track virtual event this year. Our topic for today, as you probably already know, is engineering pathways into the motorsport industry. And who better to talk to us about this than our ambassadors, Krystina and Romy. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are all dialing in from. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I will now hand over to Estelle, who will kickstart the discussion.
Thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate you taking out the time, and hopefully today will be really educational and you'll get a lot from it. For those that don't know me, I am Estelle Clapham. I am the creator and founder of the Female Drive, which is a small global community, and we're tackling inclusion and equity within motorsport. I would also like to just thank Supercheap Auto, who's presenting this webinar today. And I am a Girls on Track champion, and joining me today are two Girls on Track ambassadors, Romy and Krystina Emmanouilides. Hi both.
Hello.
Thanks for joining. And morning for Krystina, because she is currently in Zurich in Switzerland, so it's an early start for her. And Romy's dialing in actually from Sepang in Malaysia. So we're all around the world at the moment, which is really exciting, means great things are happening. How are you both going?
Yeah, pretty good. We just arrived at the track yesterday. We have the GT race coming up on the weekend. So for us, it's the setup day. Yeah, could sneak away for a bit for this exciting webinar.
And I forgot to mention that Romy is actually the race engineer for 888 Race Engineering at the moment, and Krystina is the CFD engineer for Alfa Romeo Racing Formula One. So both doing amazingly in their fields. So how is it for you, Krystina, in Zurich this morning, waking up?
It's a nice sunny morning. The bells are ringing, and yeah, just good to be here, get an hour in with this webinar before starting work at home. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's start from the beginning. I just want to talk a little bit about how both of you got into motorsport and where I guess your interest first peaked. So I'll start with you, Romy. What was it like for you growing up, and when did you kind of tap into that motorsport interest?
Yeah, so I didn't have any motorsport related upbringing in my childhood. My family isn't a typical motorsport family, I would say. My parents did watch Formula One on Sunday afternoons, pretty common for a German family, especially that time when Michael Schumacher was winning all the races. So I think that was the only connection I had as a child to motorsport, but obviously I didn't really understand at all the industry, and never been to a racetrack for very long, not in my whole childhood. And yeah, only when I kind of tried to figure out what I want to do as a profession in my career, I slowly get into engineering. I was really good in math and physics in school, but still that engineering field was pretty scary for me. I found it was just like a male-dominated industry. Obviously, I thought engineering always to do with dirty hands and big machines, big factories. And then my first experience in the field of automotive actually was an internship with Mercedes, the road cars. And that kind of sparked the interest of studying engineering, automotive engineering. And until then, still no motorsport experience at all, only in my uni years when I joined the Formula SA team at my uni. That was the first time I tapped into motorsport at all.
Awesome. And what about you, Krystina? How did your journey start?
So pretty similar to Romy, I also had no sort of external influence from my family. They were all architects actually, and I have an older sister and she went into architecture. So even when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do as a career, I also was, not bad at maths at school and was kind of always that Lego kid, and yeah, I think just growing up in Melbourne around motorsport and particularly Formula One, I kind of always knew it was there, and I was really into it somehow, even though nobody else around me was, and it just seemed natural to want to have a job or a career within a sport that I was interested in. And yeah, growing up, I played soccer, and I think I just always really liked being part of a team and being part of a sport. And it was just super appealing to do that, like I said, as a career, to be part of that same type of community.
And something you both touched on is that neither of you actually came from motorsport families. Obviously, you had an interest in it, you were aware of it, but I think there's a common misconception that you have to be part of a motorsport family in order to get into motorsport. And I think obviously there are advantages to coming from a motorsport family, but what would you say to people that are going, well, I don't come from that background, what can I do? Is this place still for me? What would you say to that?
I think I think the two of us sitting here is clearly evidence that, it doesn't really matter. And, there are so many jobs in motorsport, and a lot of, different pathways to get into them. And certainly it's the same for engineering. You don't have to have an engineer in the family just to become an engineer. I think, obviously everyone's different, interests are different. And if that's what you want to study, go away and do it. And certainly there are also other avenues like apprenticeships and things like this. And I think in that instance, it helps, if you have a few connections and you can get some good work experience and stuff, but you can also just create those along your way. And I think for myself, and certainly many of my fellow peers when I was studying, it was always the same thing, it was go out there and look for stuff. And certainly you can do that without the prior sort of connection.
And Romy, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Krystina. Obviously, the benefit coming from a family would be that you might have easier access points, some people you can contact. But on the other hand, it also, when you start from outside, let's say it like that, you already go in there trying to discover the different areas, and that might help you just open new eyes to different series, different fields. And then once you got your like a first entry point, apprenticeship or intern or anything, then usually that opened you the door to the whole motorsport family or network, because then your boss probably knows someone else, and then you're on the same level than anyone who came from a motorsport family.
Yeah, absolutely. And you both have mentioned kind of pathways and internships and work experience. One question that I did get asked on LinkedIn when I was promoting this session was, I think because we're part of Motorsport Australia, they were wondering whether education in UK and Europe would be covered. So I am interested into how you got into your universities, how you ended up doing your degree. So Romy, I might just start with you.
Yeah, so yes, as I said, I actually before I went to uni, I did a 1 week internship. I think in here it's called work placement or something like that. And yeah, this was with automotive company as well. And that was the first time I realized I wanted to work in the automotive industry. So as we mentioned before, usually any kind of experience within the industry with a company already helps you to find out, is that what I like or is it not what I like? Plus it opens you connections and contact. Then I first started to study industrial engineering, which is like a mix of mechanical engineering and kind of management. It's usually that these kind of studies usually designed for jobs on job position in crossways between engineering and management. And that was mainly still because I was too scared to study mechanical engineering, because I still thought it's just a man there and the jobs would not be the ones I wanted to do. Then 3 semesters in, I had a 6-month internship to do within the studies, and I did that with Mercedes, the road cars. And there I actually found out I actually wanted to do much more what the designers or the engineers are doing, rather than just being in this cross position where you talk to both of them, but actually, cannot actually create something because you're just like the person in the middle. And then I decided to start again from zero, studying automotive engineering. And never looked back, loved it. I was already almost 2 years into that one study, so it was a bit difficult decision to kind of not scrap that. I still gained a lot of experience, especially now helps me a lot with leadership and management and all that. But in the end, started all over again and went for automotive engineering.
Yeah, and I think that's actually really important to touch on, because I think sometimes we've been told that our careers have to be linear and we have to kind of pick what we want to be doing. And it's okay to know that you can kind of jump around until you finally decide what you want to do. And then after that, you can even change again. So I think that's really important message to kind of say that at any point, if you decide this is what you want to do, you should absolutely just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said just now, the important thing is as well the learning. You learn that might not be the area you want to go in. So you kind of a step more closer to the area you're going to like. Hey?
Yeah, absolutely. And Krystina, your uni started in Australia, but you ended up studying over in the UK. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I finished school and at that point had already applied for a couple of universities in the UK. And the reason I had done that was because I guess when I was looking to get into motorsport, there wasn't a whole lot of information about what to study, where to study, what kind of jobs there were and this type of thing. And obviously having been around Formula One a lot, I had done quite a lot of research, or as much as I could do, about what sort of people had been studying, and I had gone on LinkedIn and look at Formula One engineers' profiles and seen where they studied. I had a book actually, because originally I thought maybe I wanted to do car design, so a little bit like what Romy was saying as well. And in the back of this book, it had like universities where you could study automotive design, and a couple of those were in Italy, a couple of them were in England, and sort of from that, I started looking at other courses that unis had and figured out how the websites work and this type of thing. And then I found some motorsport engineering specific degrees that I wanted to apply to, as well as automotive ones. And yeah, so I had made a couple of applications in seeing that a lot of the employees sort of were from English universities, with all the majority of the F1 teams being in the UK. And I think I started a semester at RMIT doing, I think it was mechanical engineering, sort of as I was a bit lucky actually, because the school year starts at a different time in the UK. So I kind of had this semester time where I could start studying at RMIT, just in case I really didn't like it in England and wanted to come back, that I wasn't, a full year behind. But also just to sort of like what Romy was saying, was I sure this is what I wanted to do? And at this point, I don't know what it's like now, but the prerequisites to study engineering weren't always maths and physics. It was maths and one of chemistry or physics. And in school I had done chemistry. And so I thought, this would be a good way to sort of get on top of things before I moved to the UK and start my courses there. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a awareness at the time that a lot of the pathways in were from British universities. Certainly it's not the case now. We actually work with a couple of people in our office who, one who just started from a university in Australia, and I work really closely with another guy who was born and raised in country Queensland and studied in Australia as well. So yeah, I think obviously it's not the case that you have to study in Europe. I think the benefit that you get is that at just location and being accessible to go to interviews and apply, knowing that you have already the right to live and work in a European country or in the UK now. And I think that was the benefit. It was not just wasn't another hurdle when you applied for these things. There's already so many people applying for these jobs, and And it was obviously good to be there if something came up, and not stressing about that and thinking, oh, do I have to go? Will they accept that I have to call by phone and things like this? And, you know, for me, I think I was that extra level lucky in the sense that my family are from Greece, and I have a Greek passport, which at the time allowed me to study and live in England. And so it was just another thing. It was about accessibility and about being there. And I think, you know, obviously the industry is quite big and there's so many opportunities in Australia as well, but specifically for Formula One, it was helpful in that sense to be so close. And also, you know, we spoke about growing up in a motorsport family, but also going to a university where there are motorsport connections, and where you're basically in Motorsport Valley in England. And you know, sometimes there are graduate jobs and things like this that they advertise directly with the university. So it helps in a way.
Yeah. And you both kind of touched on this hesitation to move fully into studying to eventually become an engineer. So Romy, where did that hesitation come from? You mentioned earlier that, you know, there was this thing of like, is it for me because it was male dominated? Was that part of the hesitation? Or was it just that you weren't 100% sure of where you wanted to take your career?
Yeah, I think it was not only because male dominated, I don't think so. It was more, I couldn't see what kind of jobs you could do with engineering. That time there wasn't that many, I mean, there was no social media and not really much of internet webinars like this or any kind of, it was harder to reach out to or see other all kinds of jobs which are in motorsport or in engineering. So I couldn't really see myself which jobs I would like straight away. So I think that was the main hesitation.
Yeah. And Krystina, you mentioned as well that when you were in Australia, you kind of had to investigate how to get these jobs, and you did your own research. Do you feel that things are improving now in terms of resources and access? And like even particularly with F1, the doors have opened slightly, and we're seeing more people on Instagram and, you know, having a bit more of a global presence. Do you think that now things have changed?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, I see now, obviously there's programs like this where people can share, you know, how they did it, and not to say that that's the only way to do it, and things definitely have changed since we both were trying to get into the industry. But yeah, I think programs like this, and like you said, social media, there's a lot of people on social media who are willing to share their story and sort of help answer questions. But also there's a lot of more information coming directly from teams. You know, sometimes they're profiling engineers and things like this, and sort of sharing their stories as well. And I think, you know, we have a lot more, it's slowly opening a bit as well in terms of media access as well. So you see we have like Drive to Survive on Netflix, which sort of gives people a little bit more insight into different areas within the sport. But yeah, I think we just didn't have that when I was growing up. There was not a lot of information on the internet. Yeah, even the way people managed their LinkedIn profiles was different. And yeah, I think certainly now there's a lot more information, and I'm not sure whether that makes it easier or harder, because I think, you know, obviously everyone has a different story, and I think it's really important to consider when you're reading about these and obviously listening to our stories that it doesn't have to be exactly the same. You know, you can go a different pathway. And, you know, I think there are many times in my career that I look back now and think, oh, if I had taken that job, or if I had done this work experience, it would have been, you know, I could have ended up somewhere different. And certainly I think there's many stepping stones, and yeah, just go the way that feels right for you.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to highlight, I think sometimes the general public also assume that motorsport is purely F1, but I think we need to sometimes branch out. And Romy, you are a prime example of that. I know here in Australia, V8s are massive, and to us, that is like our, you know, number one motorsport. But I just want to quickly touch on, you talked about an internship that you did prior to going into university. Once you graduated, where did your career go from there?
Yeah, so that internship, which I just mentioned, that was just a 1 week internship still during high school. So in Germany, obviously, that the last year of your high school, you need to do a 1-week internship. And then after I graduated, I went straight to uni, the industrial engineering one.
Yeah. And then did you?
Yes.
Then what sport did you like? What style of motorsport did you move into? What kind of championship?
Sorry, after uni, yes. That was it's called DTM. It's a German touring car series. It's pretty big in Germany. It's our supercars, I would say, because it has a lot of tradition. And back in the days, it was just the two. It always changed a bit, but while it was huge, it was Mercedes and Audi racing, and BMW joined in. So it's like all the big German manufacturers having touring cars racing. Yeah, we get pretty big crowds there as well. And I joined the Mercedes team as a junior data engineer, worked there for 4 years on one race car as a data engineer, and then moved within the company to the GT part and helped developing the actual GT3 racing at the moment. So I was 1 year just in the development team and traveling around Europe from racetrack to racetrack to develop different parts of the car.
Yeah, and DTM is quite big, and I think that anyone that's into female drivers, I think, would know Ellen Law, who was a really big DTM racer back in the day, and even is the only woman I think to have ever won. But Krystina, sorry.
Susie Wolf was also racing when I first joined. She was in our customer team for 2 years.
Oh wow, yeah. Awesome. And Krystina, what did you end up doing once you graduated from uni? Where did you move into? Because I know you didn't move straight into Formula One.
Yeah, so when I graduated, it was a bit of a special situation. I hadn't actually graduated yet when I left university because I did a research master's. So when the teaching period ends, then you have like 6 months to write up your thesis. And during that time, I kind of had nowhere to live. And I basically needed to figure out what I was going to do. And I got a job working also in automotive at Jaguar Land Rover in the vehicle dynamics department. At the time, I had done sort of vehicle dynamics related projects for my undergrad final project. And yeah, I had a little bit of a background in it, and the automotive industry is also quite big in the UK. So I moved down to sort of like the Midlands of England. I was up north studying and was sort of juggling a 9-to-5 job and sort of writing up my thesis in the middle of the night and then getting up and doing it all over again for 6 months or so. And then I graduated and sort of needed to figure out, do I want to stay in automotive? Do I want to, has my mind changed about wanting to work in motorsport? And yeah, I think for me, it was a good experience in the sense that, I think Romy touched on this as well. Also, getting experience helps you figure out what you don't want to do. And for me, I think the automotive industry was just on a longer project time scale than what I was hoping to get into. I think having always wanted to go into motorsport, it was sort of exactly the opposite of what I wanted to do. And that sort of, it made it a lot more concrete for me that motorsport was what I wanted to go into. But also there was the side of, we worked a lot with software providers and, when you work for an automotive company, which is a large company, you tend to use software in a very custom tailored way in the sense that they sort of structure, especially when you're such a big customer, they structure the tools in the way that you need it. So it's very automated. And being that end user, it sort of made me realize that I wanted to be more on the other side of things and actually develop the tools and work more on that side of things. So it was good in the sense that it made me realize that I definitely wanted to work in motorsport, but also I discovered this other side that I hadn't considered before, that I wanted to be more on the software side of things. So yeah, after I think I was at Jaguar Land Rover for about 8 months, and then actually got a job working for a CFD software company, and it was their software that I had actually used for my master's thesis. And yeah, I didn't have to move very far. I stayed in the same place that I was living, so it was really useful in that sense. But we had a lot of customers in automotive and motorsport, so it was the best of both worlds, I guess, because I already had a bit of experience working in automotive, so I knew how, you know, things work there, but also it was the first step into motorsport and understanding how they worked, and also on the software side, learning a whole bunch of things, and sort of being customer facing and learning all these skills that I would have missed out on if I had gone straight into an F1 team. So that was really useful, you know, like I got to work with 4 or 5 different F1 teams. We also worked in a few different other motorsport series, while also keeping the connection to automotive. And it was an international company, so yeah, learning how to work sort of in discussions like this only, never meeting face to face and collaborating like that. And yeah, I think again in that position, it sort of made even more sure in my mind that I wanted to work in motorsport. And having gone on site and worked in different F1 teams and sort of seen how everyone worked differently, it was really, really great exposure. I think not a lot of people work in that many F1 teams in their life, and I'm really grateful that I had that sort of pathway, because you know, I got to experience so many things in so many different countries. And yeah, I think after a while, I think I was there for 3.5 years or so, and it just felt like the right time to sort of make that next move and look for a job in F1. And I'm really happy that I ended up here in Switzerland. It's also a really beautiful country, and the weather is amazing. And yeah, it's good to be sort of in a team where, you know, the only way is up, and we've been making steps towards that. And yeah, things have changed a lot since I joined. And I think it's just really satisfying in the motorsport world to see that, because of the timescales are a lot smaller than automotive. You know, it's like day to day or week to week, and maximum really month to month. It's not anything past that. So yeah, I think it's a really special environment. Yeah, I think, you know, there's no wrong way, like I said, to get in, and I certainly value the path that I took because of all the different skills that I learned along the way. Yeah.
And Romy, you took almost like the complete opposite path to Krystina in terms of countries. So I think as Australians, we probably assume we have to, and Krystina's covered this as well, that we have to go to Europe to make this career happen. But you actually decided to come to Australia. Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience and where the decision ultimately was made to move halfway across the world to join V8s?
Yes. So yes, I mentioned my jobs right after uni was with HWA, the DTM team of Mercedes, and I stayed with them for 4 years and gained a lot of experience. It was a steep learning curve, especially with no motorsport background. And then did that 1 year to develop the GT3 car, which was also amazing. But then I felt it was already good going from DTM, not good, but like it was a good change, just to change up from DTM to GT3. I learned even more than, because after 4 years, I felt like the learning curve didn't go as steep anymore, and I was still just one race car, basically. And yeah, it was good to get into GT3 and especially learn from the very scratch how to develop a race car. But then I still had the urge. I needed different environment. Especially, I wanted to move to a different country where I could improve my English, or live in an environment where I can use English every day. And then as the first option would have been obviously, or the easiest, straightforward option would be the UK, because the motorsport industry is huge over there. All F1 teams are there. And by at that time, my goal was definitely working in Formula One. Then when I considered applying motorsport shops in the UK though. I still remember it was a summer day in Germany, which is June, July, it's our summertime. It was raining, it was grey, it was 12 degrees. I was freezing at home. I'm like, no, that's it. I need to go to a place where at least I can enjoy my weekends off, because I don't have so many weekends off. And that was the year when AAA just announced that they expanding from the 2 Red Bull cars to 3 cars with Craig Lowndes, and Shane Van Gisbergen was joining the year after. And then I thought, oh, if they expanding another race car, so there might be some more engineers for that. So actually, I just sent an email with my CV and cover letter to info@redbullracing.com.au, I think. And yeah, I got an email back, luckily, from Mark Dutton a couple of days after.
Oh, amazing. And you just took the leap and you moved to Australia.
Yeah. So yeah, I've never been to Australia before. And I remember some of my colleagues at HW were saying, what if you don't like it? Like, how do you like, now you like the summer? I'm like, well, I don't know, but if I don't like it, I come back. But
it's got to be better than the English weather.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But so actually, it was that year before was HWA was developing the Mercedes, which was racing in the supercars with Erebus. So I had some colleagues who had been over there, and they were telling me, "Hey, you gotta go there. They have this race on a mountain. It's like 500,000 people camping a week there before." And yeah, and then in October, or end of September that same year, I went over. And since ever then with AAA race.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me, I've actually had Romy on the podcast as well, and I remember you telling me your first race was actually Bathurst.
Yeah, I came to Australia, I think it was on a Friday or so. I started to work in the office Monday. I was the only Monday, and Tuesday we left for Bathurst. And that was the year we won Bathurst as well.
That's the way to start. That's the way to start in the industry.
That's what everyone told me. And it's not much more to achieve winning Bathurst.
I don't want to deviate from careers too much, but I must say, watching your Instagram, Romy, your Instagram stories and that, you really do live the life. You're always at the beach, the sun. I don't know why the sun always shines wherever you are, but you seriously have picked that ideal Australian lifestyle.
Well, yeah, that's why I came for. So I really try to enjoy every minute I have, even if I work from home and I need to wake up at 6 to go with my dog to the beach to watch the sunrise. I'll do that and take the pain of driving from the Gold Coast to Brisbane a couple of days a week. So it's not. Yeah, I probably should put up some pictures of me in a traffic jam every morning.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be slightly less envious.
Yeah, you just need to have priorities, you know.
Now, Krystina, I just want to go back to you. Now, you've moved into Formula One, and this is a goal of yours that you had wanted to do for some time. What's been the best part about your job, and what's been, I guess, what makes you sit back and go, yep, that's it. I've chosen the right career. This is absolutely what I should be doing.
I think it depends really on the day and how you're feeling. Like sometimes it's the smallest things can be super satisfying, like when you've been chasing an answer to something and you finally get it. Or, you know, if you, I don't know, like you see the results of a race weekend now, like we're seeing all the hard work we put in last year, and especially, you know, how difficult it was for everyone during COVID and working from home and not being able to, you know, work how we normally did and adapting and stuff. It's also really great to see that, you know, we pulled through, and yeah, and then some other times it's just being really excited about, I mean, most weekends I'm like Romy, most weekends I try and do something, especially in the extreme months. So like, you know, when it's winter and it's snowing, I like to go skiing, or when it's summer and it's hot, I like to go hiking and stuff here. But yeah, it's just knowing where my career has brought me and what I've been able to experience from that as well. So like sort of the work side of things, and then the subsequent life side of things is it's that as well. But yeah, I think it's just always super satisfying when you achieve anything at work. If it's the smallest thing, like getting a piece of code to work that you've been working all day on, or finding out why something wasn't working. It's just literally the smallest things, because, you know, when you work in an industry where everyone needs everything right now or yesterday, even, when you can actually deliver it to them, you're just like, okay, I did it. What's next? You know, and then you don't really have time to think, or really to like pat yourself on the back too long, because you've already got like 10 other things lined up. But yes, certainly I think when you've got everything lined up and you've got a plan, and you can sort of finish the week knowing you did something, even that is really satisfying.
And Romy, what about you? What's been your I guess your driving force behind your career and your day-to-day? What makes you excited?
Yeah, I think it's not exactly the same, but similar, like that you can actually see your input in the results of the team or the car. That's just the benefit of working in motorsport. You, for example, when you're on the racetrack, you make a change, you see if the car is faster, or if the race driver come back to you and give you the feedback, oh yeah, that's much better, that's exactly what I needed to drive faster. That's the best feeling. And then especially as well, the team working together, and it works smoothly. Everyone gives their best. We all work towards the same goal. It's that's kind of which, yeah, makes you work long hours, I believe, as well. That's a benefit of working in the motorsport industry rather than normal automotive industry for the road cars, where you might work on a very interesting project as well. I did an internship with Porsche working on the designing parts for the Panamera, and obviously that the very first one. So that was the first 4-seater or 5-seater for the Porsche, which was a big project there. But in the end, I worked there, and there was still another 2 years until that car on the part I designed would be on the straight. So I would see the result only that. And so that was, that's very different in the motorsport industry. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And is there, I kind of secretly already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it again. Is there a standout moment in your career, Romy, where you were like, wow, this is one for the history books, like one that you'll remember forever?
Yeah, there's definitely one. One was also getting the job with working for AAA, then be able to move to Australia for a job. That, especially looking back and meeting a lot of people in Australia who came to Australia because they want to live there, but not for a job, how hard it is to stay in Australia, have a visa, have permanent residency. So I'm really grateful I had the opportunity to come here for an amazing job. But yeah, winning in career-wise, definitely winning the 2017 championship with Jamie Whincup, being one of the engineers on his car. And it was, I think it was like in a movie when it came down to the last race. Even it was last race week event anyway, so we had a race on Saturday. We crashed in the first lap, became 17th, I think, and Scott McLaughlin won the race. And then for the next race on Sunday, the chances were like 1,000 that we could have still get the championship. He would have needed to become P20 or something, and we would have needed to win it. He was obviously very quick as well. I think we qualified 1 and 2. And then though, Scott McLaughlin got a couple penalties throughout the race, but he always fought back and made his way back through the field again. And then at the very last lap, he crashed with brake lines. And Jamie Whincup was already crossing the line as winner of the race, but they still haven't announced if there would be a penalty for Scott McLaughlin. So Jamie came on the radio. So what's going on? What am I the winner? What happened? Where's Scotty? And we're like, we don't know. And then they announced it that he got the penalty for that as well. So we were champions. That was very special.
That's awesome. I love hearing these success stories. And what about you, Krystina? Is there a moment for you that stands out at all?
I think it's really hard to choose. I think certainly, the first time I walked through the doors of an F1 team and knowing that, I'd finally achieved the goal that I had left home to achieve. Yeah. I'll never forget that. But also, I think every time you walk through the doors of an F1 team is a memory. And certainly I've been many times for interviews and many times for actually, my job was to work with Formula One teams, and you kind of pinch yourself every time you're sitting in the entrance area and looking at all the trophies the teams have and things like this. I was always nervous every time I went, even though I was going there to help a customer. It felt like, this was it, Yeah. And I think all those moments sort of kept pushing me, and although they weren't, the day that I walked through as an employee, they were really important to me as remembering, what I'd come here to do, because I think it's really easy to get comfortable as well. Like, I loved my previous job. I loved the people I worked with. I loved, the life I had sort of created in England, and to leave that was also difficult. But, I knew what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve, and it just makes it worth all the sort of things that you leave behind or things that you have to change. Or it was just a mix of things, really. And I think every one of those moments was sort of leading up to the big ending or the start of the end, let's say.
Yeah. And it's been actually great. It was a great choice, Bianca, to have both Romy and Krystina on today, because they're almost mirror images of each other's career. Like, it's funny how, like, you've both gone into major championships, but you've had almost the complete opposite story, but a very similar line, I suppose. What would be your advice, Krystina, I suppose, for young women coming up through the ranks that are considering this as a career?
Do it. Don't just consider it. Do it. We need more women in the industry. And I think if you're not certain about what you want to do, just try something, like we've said, because, if you have a gut feeling about something that you're sort of tending towards, usually it's right. But even if you don't end up liking it, you'll find something else by doing that you're more interested in. So just try. Like, don't worry so much. There are so many people who have taken so many different steps. Like, I originally started thinking I wanted to do car design, and then I thought I wanted to do race engineering, and then I thought I wanted to be a design engineer, and then I thought I wanted to be an aerodynamicist, and then I finally ended up in CFD engineering. So, I also didn't know what I wanted to do, and I think it's just important that you start somewhere. Start somewhere, and then from that, you'll figure it out. There'll be different experiences you have and different opportunities you have that help you figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Romy, what would your advice be? I'm sure it's probably very similar, but what would your advice be?
It's true. It's true. I mean, and that's what me and Krystina, when we were telling our story, you could see that in that as well. Like, we tried a lot of things. I did lots of internships, and each of them, I took something away or pushed me in one direction or the other, just because I realized what I want to do and what I didn't want to do. You need to put your hand up for doing things like within the motorsport industry, like reach out to teams, put your hands up for if they need help just for a weekend, that you at least get a little bit of insight what's going on a race weekend. Reach out to a person you think they have the job you want one day. Ask them all kind of questions, how they got into it, as well as which internship they took and how they ended up on that path. But as Krystina said, don't be afraid to choose one direction, even if you're not 100% certain. This next step might lead you further, or it might lead you in another direction, but it will never bring you back here. So, and you actually never will find out what happened if you would have taken the other area or the other direction. So there's never a right or wrong. So if you just have your goal, or if you don't even know what's your goal, just an immediate goal in front there, and then there's never a step in the wrong way. It will always lead you closer to this.
I think it's a good point as well to say, like, even though there is more information about how to get into the industry, a lot of it is still you putting your hand up and you reaching out to people and you trying to make those connections, emailing teams, saying, do you need help on the weekend? Can I come for a week during the summer to do like a work experience? You know, it still very much is an industry where you have to show your enthusiasm and you have to sort of not go out of your way. I just can't think of a better way to explain it, but you have to take that initiative to contact someone and make those connections, because while being from a motorsport family doesn't matter, like having some sort of connection does help, because like we said before, as soon as you reach out to a team, and like, for example, I did a 1 week work experience when I was in school at a car dealership in the garage. And then from there, I met the owner. One of their customers was the owner of their race team. And then he said, oh, do you want to also do a week there? You know, and so you kind of like make those connections along the way, but you have to start it from somewhere. So don't be embarrassed. Like the worst thing that somebody could say is no, or probably not reply. And it doesn't really matter, you know, like maybe they reach out to you in 6 months, maybe they reach out to you in a week, but you just have to try, and you have to sort of take that initiative to like get involved.
Yeah, Estelle, we were talking about this yesterday as well, right? It's all about initiative. You got to put your hand up. And the great thing about being in Australia is there are race meetings pretty much every weekend across the country. So go onto the Motorsport Australia website, you can find a calendar of events in every state, and all of these teams are looking for people. So like Krystina said, the worst is they're going to say no, which is highly unlikely as well, like highly unlikely. No one's going to say no to an extra pair of hands. So yeah, whoever's listening, just put your hand up, go for it. We've got about 10 minutes left, so we might open the floor to questions. Estelle, so that's all right to you?
Of course.
So you can type them and send them through. I might just get the ball rolling with the questions. And these were some of the questions that came through the Grand Prix event. So to Romy and Krystina, what qualities do you think your employers look for when hiring engineers?
I think as well, when you're like someone young coming through, so maybe just graduating or finishing an apprenticeship or something, the only thing that really helps you stand out these days, you know, like if 10 people apply and they've all done the same degree, is that initiative, you know, like what work experience have you gone and done, even if it's completely unrelated. Like if I had gone and helped a race team on a weekend and saying that I then did that for a season, you know, it shows that A, you took initiative, B, you're passionate about the sport, regardless of what series it is. And see that you kind of have some sort of understanding about how the industry works. And, you know, not everyone will go and volunteer to do things or do work experience and stuff. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I would say is, and we touched on this at the Grand Prix event, was try, if you know what sort of area you want to go into, try and figure out what software people are using in the industry and sort of get a head start on that. And if you don't know specifically that you want to be a race engineer or CFD engineer or something, just figure out the main ones. So for example, like all automotive companies use CAD software to do 3D design or something. Try and, you know, watch some tutorials or get some basic understanding. And yeah, just, I think those are two of my things, because these days, you know, most people go the same pathway, particularly for engineering. In F1, they do an engineering degree. And a lot of people are doing Formula Student as well, which is great. But when everyone does it, how do you stand out? And so I think, again, it just goes back to initiative.
Fantastic. And what about you, Romy?
Yeah, I agree with Krystina. As we mentioned at the Grand Prix, the software is something you can stand out, and it's probably not unique to motorsport, but in the end, it's still doesn't help you in all industries, but motorsport for sure, because usually we are so busy. Everyone who has not only one job at the race team, they have a lot of jobs, and it's harder if you have a young person or fresh from uni and you need to teach them from the very start. They never open that software, even they might be very smart and knowledgeable once they got it. But if you have a head start, you know how that software works, how you navigate around it. And a lot of softwares, all the motorsport team using having free trials, that helps you just get an idea of it. Or if I heard about a student who was graduating, he actually gave, I think it was a webinar, I think it was online, but it's still like a kind of introduction for one of the software to younger students, and then had that in his CV. That's already something, you know. And what Krystina said as well, you need to find something which made you stand out, especially if you want to apply for a job in Europe, because it can get very competitive. Even you're still young, just about to finish uni and don't have that much experience, but you still want to tell a story, how you got there where you are and why you think you want to why that is the job you want. Did you do internships which made you realize you don't want to go in that area? Did you do volunteering work, even if it's not in motorsport, but still help you with people skills or anything? Yeah, you definitely need to find something which made you stand out. Just tell a story about yourself, how you got to where you are at the moment, and why that made you special for the job which is on offer.
Awesome. Estelle, do you have access to the questions? There are a couple that are coming through
actually.
Yeah. Do you want to take them?
Are there any specific degrees for mechanical automotive engineering in Australia that you would recommend?
Well, it's hard to say. I'm obviously not on top of things back there anymore, but certainly what I found when I was looking for a degree was the way I navigated it was to look at the prospectus for each of the degrees. So you get sort of like an overview of what are the classes that you have to do in each of them, because usually for automotive, it's very strict and you only get to pick one or two by choice. The rest of them are core classes. And so what I did was I looked at all I sort of found some that I was interested in and then compared all the classes. And for me, it was important to pick something that was broad because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I chose something that had like engineering. My engineering degree had engineering, aerodynamics, vehicle dynamics, structures. There was a business module as well. There was a design module. So I sort of got an overview of everything. Also, what I found helped was like distinguishing whether there was it was a very theoretical course or whether it was an applied course. And I ended up going for the applied course because for me, it was just much easier to learn when, all the math problems were about cars and this type of thing. And I think that was quite special to the degree that I chose because it was motorsport focused. So I think, the best, I don't know specifically which degree. I think also choosing a university that has good software and like relevant software, and also a good Formula student team which probably has a good reputation is helpful. But just take a look through the courses, go to the open days, and I think you'll find something that suits you. But also you need to consider, do you like that university? Does the culture fit you? Because if you're not happy where you are, then it doesn't really matter what the course is. So it's a big mix of things, and I think it's very individual.
Just because we're running out of time, we're coming close to the end. There is just one here specifically for Romy. When working as a data engineer, what are some technical skills I should start to develop now as an undergrad engineer to get a head start in this role?
Yeah, so data engineer, as it says, it's all about data. So if you like to analyze data, obviously probably you won't have access to any vehicle recorded data, but in general, if you can make sense out of a big bunch of data, which is either something like weather data or your own personal, sleep data, workout data, and just analyze it, see pattern, figure out how you can present big bunch of data, which just a big bunch of numbers to to like your manager, or like make a graphs out of that and make sense out of it, and how you would use that knowledge from the data to make decisions on steps ahead. Like, I don't know, just an example, you analyze the weather data from Australia and realize usually in May it rains a lot in Melbourne, so might take an umbrella. Something like that, but all kind of data you would have access to, and just find out how you can make sense out of data to make decisions ahead. But then again, it's very helpful if you can get insight into the softwares we're using to analyze data. And even not ours, well, ours help you a lot, which is everything around Motec, but then also other analyzing software like Tableau and Excel, obviously VBA, that gives you already a good start if you are familiar and comfortable with that.
And Abby, who asked the questions, said a massive thank you. So I think that's definitely answered. Now, here's one for both of you. I'd love to know what has been the biggest challenge in either Romy or Krystina's career, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Maybe something I completely forgot about, but I was recently cleaning my email out and I found that I actually had a job offer from a Formula One team much earlier in my career, which I had forgotten about. I'm not sure whether I'd done it on purpose or not, but yeah, and at the time I was really enjoying where I was working, but also having, I had a really good relationship with my manager, and I sort of spoke to him about the situation, and it was actually something that I had interviewed before I got the job, so it wasn't long after I started at this position, and because it was quite a delayed response. It was like 6 months or something. I think a second position opened up and they contacted me again. And I said to him, like, look, this is the situation. And obviously this is something that I'm really struggling with because I'm enjoying this work here and I know I can learn from it. And it was sort of a different job. I think the job was like aero performance engineer and I was doing CFD at the time. And he said to me, like, I think if you leave now, it would also not be really good for us. Like we could potentially lose this client because I was the only person working on the project and it was a huge amount of money. Like it would have been a serious issue for the company. And I think, morally, I also didn't want to do that. But at the same time, I wanted to work in F1. And I think that was a really difficult decision for me because, I wanted to do the right thing. And also at the same time, I knew I was learning a lot where I was, but I kind of closed the door on an opportunity that, would have changed my career completely. I would have been somewhere different right now. And I think that was really difficult. And sometimes it's really difficult to look back and say, did I make the right decision? But, at the end of the day, I'm really happy right now. And I think that's the thing to focus on. Like, yes, it took a bit longer, but I wouldn't have met the people I met. I wouldn't have, learned the things I've learned and ended up probably in Switzerland if I hadn't taken that course. So yeah, I think there's always going to be moments where maybe you aren't sure whether you are making the right decision. But I think, like I said before about choosing a path, sometimes you just have a gut feeling. And I think in my case, the best thing to do was to go with that gut feeling.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we have about 1 minute left. Romy, do you have anything to add to that?
A bit similar, but probably as well moving away from my home country in a country with a different language, which is not my mother tongue, and to a new team, created both, two new challenges. And you're afraid, you don't know if it all works out, but you grow with all these challenges that just makes you stronger, and you learn from it, and it helps you go ahead.
I think just to summarize, everything that's been mentioned today is hustle. Definitely be hustling, go out, speak to people. You now have an online community at your fingertips. Girls on Track is willing to support you. Motorsport Australia is willing to support you. So go out and ask questions, reach out to us on Instagram, reach out to us on socials. Definitely hustle. Education is never wasted. And I don't just mean university degrees. I mean going out and experiencing motorsport in all different aspects. And also give yourself a break. First and foremost, go out, figure out what you want to do. And if it's not right, change. It's okay to not have to go through every stage, because as Romy mentioned, everything you learn is not wasted. It'll always benefit you at some point in your life. You happy with that, Priyanka?
I see Priyanka nodding.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining us, both Romy and Krystina. It's been absolutely great. I always love chatting with you both, and I think today has been super beneficial. Thanks to everyone that tuned in, asked questions. This is what we love. We love doing this, and you are part of that. So thanks so much for joining us, and looking forward to the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.